Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris. Often when we talk about tax policy, we're talking about the changes that governments and regulators are making to legislation. But a really important part of tax policy is actually how territories look to enforce policy through bodies like tax authorities. There's extensive research that suggests in times of economic downturn or slow growth, which some of our major economies are experiencing currently, a renewed focus on gathering as much income as possible via taxes, leveraging the role of tax authorities, is actually key. We're seeing this in our most recent TCDR, or Tax Controversies and Dispute Resolution Survey. 100% of the respondents had faced a tax dispute in the last 2 years, and only 8 of the 825 surveyed said they didn't have an active dispute at the time of completing the survey. I think this demonstrates how active tax authorities are, with many respondents expecting inquiries to increase. So I'm delighted to welcome today Giovanni Bracco, who is our co-leader of our Global Tax Controversy and Dispute Resolution, and Jonathan Howe, who's our Global Connected Tax Compliance Leader. So Giovanni, Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
Good. So Giovanni, let me start with you. So what are you seeing in terms of these global disputes that our clients have been telling us about, and the patterns from a tax policy perspective?
Yeah, very happy to share that. And rather than share something that's just my own personal experience, I thought you mentioned our survey. Mm-hmm. The survey was really interesting. We surveyed 825 businesses from around the world, all over the world, and it was interesting. 70% of them say that they've already, over the last 3 to 5 years, experienced a significant increase in the number of inquiries and disputes that they have. And the same percentage say that over the next 3 to 5 years, they expect that to continue. So if you go back, say, 6 to 8 years or 6 to 10 years, we're seeing a significant increase in the number of disputes that they have. I think another thing that's really interesting is at a point in time when I first started in tax was the sort of domain of the tax director, or the head of tax. We're not seeing that. The survey showed us that actually a significant proportion within an organisation of people that are interested in it are actually the CFOs and the CEOs. So you've got 45% of the surveyed said it was the CFO that was interested, 35% said it was the CEO. So that focus at the high level within organisations is something that I think has been a major shift. And that's driven, I think, by 2 factors. I think it's about the uncertainty and the time and cost associated with dealing with inquiries, but also the potential reputational risk that sits with these large inquiries, particularly in circumstances where they might go to litigation and end up being published. The third area that I think is a significant one is we talk a lot in the world of tax about Pillar 2. And I think the survey also surveyed a number of tax authorities, and both tax authorities and the businesses that we spoke to all expect there to be a significant increase in the number of inquiries on the back of Pillar 2, not just internationally, but also domestically as well.
Good. Wow. So a lot going on. So Jonathan, we're talking about tax controversy and dispute resolution, and everybody thinks of sort of lawyers and the tax authorities, and yet here we have the Global Connected Tax Compliance Leader. Why is data important in this, and what can CTC bring to this?
Yeah, I think when a company is initially faced with a very specific dispute, quite rightly the response is tactical.
Yep.
How do I answer the questions? Often engage Giovanni and teams like his, and that's absolutely an effective way to deal with it. But when you start to hear some of those stats about the growth in disputes, when you start thinking about organisations, how many taxes they have in how many territories, you start thinking about how interconnected those taxes are, then you have to think, I believe, more strategically about it. You have to think end-to-end for your compliance process and how you manage a future dispute all the way through. So from the very beginning, looking at tax policy, what is that policy there for? What should it do for your transactions? What's the intention?
Music to my ears, by the way.
I'm doing this for you, Will. So, and then as we move into the data element, what's our data? Where did it come from? Can we track where we got it from? What we did to it? Who authorised it and why? Are we maintaining that digital audit trail as we go through? Then we look at our tax return. What was the outcome? Was that expected for us? Does it tie back to what we thought the policy was going to do? Can we build all that for all our taxes as we go, minimising expense, its efficiency, and it gives you a much more joined up story, particularly when you'll be disclosing the same data in relation to different taxes to different tax authorities in different territories.
Great. So, Giovanni, I'd love to get your reflections on this, but I do actually have a specific question because the proof of the pudding is generally in the eating. Does being sort of better prepared, in control of your data, knowing all of what it is, does that actually have an effect with the tax authorities, or they just sort of blow past it?
I mean, it definitely has an effect. I think if you look at any dispute that we deal with, certainly the significant ones, they tend to either succeed or not based on the facts, and your ability to demonstrate that you made decisions and you've got the evidence to support that decision making on a more real time basis, I think is crucial. I think facts for me are the way in which you get disputes resolved.
Yep.
Now, a lot of clients will leave things and then wait until the inquiry comes in, and then start thinking, where am I going to get the information that I need in order to respond to the inquiry? I think what Jonathan's talking about is very much thinking about that at the front end. And I think it does two things, actually. It enables you to actually ensure that you've got the evidence that you need at the time you do your filing, but it also gives you a choice, because it might also give you a choice as to whether you wait for the inquiry or you actually engage proactively with the tax authority. And I think, for me, engaging proactively with tax authorities can be a really positive and sensible way to deal with issues that are likely to be contentious when the returns are filed.
And just to come back to you, Jonathan, a sort of question, which is in a sense a general one, but also in relation to this. I mean, as we go into clients to talk to them about this, what does their data look like?
So tax functions tend to be downstream users of data.
Right.
So they tend to get the data relatively late in the process. It is often not fit for purpose. So they tend to fix it themselves, often in Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And that's endemic across industries. So what we're seeing now to deal with the ever-increasing reporting, this interconnectivity of global reporting, tax functions have to move upstream. They're getting more and more involved in that data process. It's somewhere where we've really been focusing our time when we talk about tax compliance. Actually, we can automate your compliance if we have good data. Yeah. But actually, in driving that process through to allow you to get your return quickly, if you do that in the right way, you build your digital audit trail at the same time. Yep. So it shouldn't be, let's think about tax disputes, let's build something entirely separate. Let's build it into your ongoing day-to-day connected compliance process.
Great. No, that's a great point. And one last question for you, Giovanni. If you got out your undoubtedly cloudy crystal ball, I can only speak from experience, but from my own crystal ball. But if you look into that, obviously we've seen from the survey how many more disputes there are, the inquiries, all the rest of that stuff. Do you think we're reaching the top? Are we plateauing, or do you see more signs of growth?
I think there's definitely more signs of growth, but I also think it's the way in which the tax authorities will undertake the inquiries and the disputes that arise from those inquiries. I think we're already seeing them using technology in a different way. Yes. And actually, by using technology and using AI, as you referenced, it will enable them to review a much greater number of businesses in a way that I think more recently they've not been able to do. So as territories sort of develop their own tools, I think we'll see more and more of that. And I think it makes it even more important that you adopt that holistic approach and you don't just look at it from a territory by territory perspective. You step back and think about what you're going to have to provide across the globe.
Yeah, look, these are all great points. I mean, the challenges of the future are substantial, but equally the ability to at least face some of those challenges does exist. So Giovanni, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as well. And come back next time so that you stay global tax ready.